Every king who owned this palace mysteriously vanished. 3 kings entered this palace. None of them ever came back out, and no one knows why. I have spent 4 years as a journalist investigating patterns in historical records that official sources prefer to leave unexplained. This is the most disturbing pattern I have ever found. And before we go any further, I need to tell you something. There is a detail at the end of this story that I've been holding back. I will tell you what it is, but not yet. The palace was completed in 1387. Mountains of northern Persia. A ruler named Sultan Mahmoud moved in the same year. He was not superstitious. He was methodical, precise, a man who kept records of everything. His court historians documented every single day of his life for 17 years. And then, on the 14th day of the 3rd month of 1404, the records simply stop. No death notice, no abdication, no final entry explaining what happened. One day Sultan Mahmoud was there. The next, he was not. His court waited. They sent letters to every neighboring kingdom asking if anyone had seen him. Search parties were organized. The surrounding mountains were mapped in detail. Nothing. Sultan Mahmoud was never found. His historians, the men who had recorded his every movement for 17 years, wrote one final entry. It reads, "The Sultan departed on the night of the 14th. He has not returned. We do not know where he has gone. We are writing this so that whoever reads it next will know. We also did not understand what happened." That is the last line they ever wrote. But that is not the strangest part. For 30 years, no one wanted the palace. Not because it was damaged, not because of superstition, simply because no one could explain what had happened to the man who lived there. And then, in 1434, a ruler named Amir Jahan decided he was not afraid of an empty building. He had read Sultan Mahmud's records. He called the disappearance the failure of frightened historians to document a simple departure. He employed 6 court historians of his own, more than any ruler of his era. He moved in during spring. He was confident. He was organized. He was going to set the record straight. He lasted 11 years. In the autumn of 1445, the same thing happened. All 6 historians wrote their own separate accounts of that night. All 6 said exactly the same thing. They heard nothing. They saw nothing. They noticed nothing unusual. They went to sleep. They woke up. The ruler was gone. No sound, no struggle, no sign of anything. One historian, a man named Reza al-Shirazi, added a single detail his 5 colleagues did not include. He wrote, "I checked the chamber in the early morning. The bed had been slept in. His shoes were beside it. His personal seal, which he never removed from his person, was on the table. He left without his shoes. He left without his seal." If you were inside that palace that night, you would not have heard anything either. But that is still not the strangest part. For 80 years, the palace stood empty by formal decree. The regional council issued an official ruling. The building was to remain unoccupied until an explanation could be found. No explanation was ever found. And then, in 1523, Shah Darius arrived, the most powerful ruler of the 3, the most skeptical, a man who had built his entire reputation on refusing to accept what he could not personally verify. He had read both sets of records. He declared them failures of documentation by men who lacked the courage to record simple facts. He moved in during the summer of 1523. He lasted 7 months. On a night his own guards later described as completely unremarkable, Shah Darius walked out of his private chamber. Guards were stationed at every entrance. not one of them saw him leave. 3 kings, 3 centuries, 3 disappearances. And I still have not told you the strangest part. That is where we go next. Every king who owned this palace mysteriously vanished. It was not random. It never was. When researchers examined all 3 disappearances, Sultan Mahmoud in 1404, Amir Jahan in 1445, Shah Darius in 1523, they found something none of the original historians had noticed. All 3 disappeared under the same sky, a rare astronomical alignment, occurring in that specific region at that specific time of year, once every 39 years. Sultan Mahmoud, 1404. Amir Jahan, 1445. Shah Darius, 1523. The gaps are 41 years and 78 years. Not a perfect sequence, but close enough that 3 separate researchers, working independently in different countries, across different centuries, all identified the pattern. All 3 chose not to publish their findings. I found their unpublished notes in 3 separate archives. Each researcher had reached the same conclusion. None of them explained why they stayed silent. Think about what that means. 3 scholars, 3 different eras, 3 men who spent years building careers on the careful documentation of historical fact. And all 3 decided, independently, that this particular fact was better left unpublished. That is not coincidence. That is a choice, a deliberate, considered choice to keep something hidden. The same choice that Sultan Mahmud's historians made when they stopped writing. The same choice that the regional council made when they issued a decree and never followed up. The same choice that every person who has ever gotten close to understanding this palace has apparently made, to stop. Not because they were forced to, because something in what they found made them decide, on their own, that the world was better off not knowing. I have spent 4 years asking myself what that something could be. I have not found an answer that satisfies me, but I have found the room. And now, the detail I told you I was holding back. In 1887, a surveying team mapping the palace made an unexpected discovery. A corridor, not on any architectural plan, not on any map that predates their arrival. A corridor leading to a single room in the eastern wing, a hidden corridor, leading to a room that had no reason to exist. They entered it. The room was empty, completely empty, except for one thing. On the eastern wall, carved into stone at eye level, 3 names. Geologists examined the carvings. The markings were made centuries apart by 3 different hands. The first name, Sultan Mahmoud. The second, Amir Jahan. The third, Shah Darius. Someone entered that room after each disappearance. Someone carved a name. No one knows who. No one knows how they got in. No one knows why that corridor does not appear on any plan that predates 1887. The palace still exists. The corridor still exists. The room still exists. Those 3 names, carved by hands that history cannot identify, are still on that wall, exactly as they were when first discovered. I told you at the beginning there was a detail I was holding back. This is it. The wall has space for a 4th name. If a 4th name appears on that wall, who do you think it will belong to? Would you spend 1 night in that palace? Leave your answer in the comments. And if you want to know about the palace where researchers finally opened the doors after 2 centuries and found the last meal still on the table, untouched, that story is coming next. Subscribe, and I will see you there. One final thing. This story is inspired by real historical patterns. The abandonment of palaces following unexplained events is documented across multiple empires. Hidden architectural spaces discovered centuries after construction are a matter of archaeological record. The practice of carving names into stone as historical record exists across many ancient cultures. The specific palace, the specific rulers, and the specific room are fictional constructions, built from those real patterns. I tell these stories because the questions underneath them are worth asking. What do we choose not to record? And why? And what does history leave behind, even when it tries to erase itself?